Excited, yes.
Yes.
Welcome all to another exciting year in Loft for meeting of spiritual science as social activism and self-initiation. It's lovely to have a nice warm loft full of people on this cold Toronto night. And this couple of years ago, Cosmopolitan magazine said that this part of the planet right here in West Queen West is the second coolest neighborhood on the planet. I quite agree. Well, it came second after some neighborhood in Japan, Tokyo, which, you can't out-cool Tokyo. But I think tonight we're proving just how cool this neighborhood is with our guest speaker, the Honorable Mr. Paul Hellyer. Very delighted that he accepted my invitation to come here. I met Mr. Hellyer about a year and a half ago when he was giving a talk at another house salon event, and thought, he's got some very interesting things to say from A to Z. I'm sure we could slot him into our programming here on spiritual science. And spoke with him on the phone, I guess it was a little over a year ago, and you said you were quite consumed with working with your latest book. And as you can see, he's been quite consumed a lot of his life with books, but he was working on the current one, his autobiography. That's funny, and you finally got around to doing an autobiography after writing all these other books. Hope Restored: My Life and Views on Canada, the U.S., the world, and he doesn't stop there, the universe. So going really big or go home, right? So tonight's talk we called Mr. Paul Hellyer, Hope Restored, ? Hell yes. I hope you probably heard that many times in your career. Puns on your name. So for some of you, Mr. Hellyer may be new. For others, I'm sure that you're quite familiar with him and the various aspects of his life, from being involved in Canadian federal politics, cabinet minister of defense, and now on a Queen's Privy Council. It's, I believe, the second longest standing after Prince Philip.
It's just the other way around.
Yeah. Oh.
I'm first, he's second.
So, as you can see, Mr. Hellyer at age 95, 96, 95 is still writing and kicking and causing mischief, as he said to me on the phone the other day, because he was about to be interviewed on Coast to Coast. Past few days ago. So very busy, very active, very delighted to have him here. I don't think I'm going to spend any more time speaking to introduce him, because that's largely what he's here to do, is to speak about his life, his autobiography, and at some point I guess we'll have time for questions as well. Just in terms of housekeeping, we have a washroom back in the corner there. I think we're going to probably take a break at some point, so people can use the washroom and get some refreshment. If you really
want to roll through the speech and then take a break before the questions?
That sounds great. That sounds great.
I'll give everybody a chance to think up what they want to throw at me.
Indeed.
I mean, ask the questions they want.
And while I'm on the subject of housekeeping, we do all sorts of events here in the loft. There's a sign-up sheet there for our email addresses if you want to be on our email list. There's a little basket there as well for donations for these events. I think I'm going to try and keep the window closed because it does keep the noise out, but I may open it at some point if it gets a little too steamy in here. And you can let me know if it's getting too hot for you. So, without further ado, let's have a warm round of applause for our guest of honor, the Honorable
Jesse, thank you for the invitation and for providing the venue. I don't usually speak sitting down, so it's going to be a change for me and maybe more of a fireside chat style than my usual bombastic whatever. But I made some notes because I'm launching this new book and haven't had a chance to make many presentations yet, and so it's hard to know what people want to listen to. Jesse sort of said to go through your life and let us know where you wound up 95 years later, and that's what I plan to do. But I sort of went through it last night, and it's about a half an hour longer than anybody could bear to sit. So I'm going to race through the early part, and if there's anything that I missed that you really want me to talk about, you can ask in the question period, and I think that's the best way of handling it. But I want to get to the latter part of the book, which is really more important in many ways, and I think it would be a mistake if we didn't save enough time to do that. So I was raised on a farm about 90 miles west of here, Waterford, near Waterford, Ontario, in the county of Norfolk, tobacco country. My father pioneered the ginseng business in Canada.
Nice. No wonder you got so much energy.
Yeah, take it every day. So it was a great place to be raised. My parents were both very spiritual people, which was a great advantage. And we only went to church and Sunday school 4 times each Sunday. That's in the days when there was nothing else to do, no theaters or hockey games or whatever to distract people. But it was a wonderful environment, and one where I was able to learn very quickly a number of skills, how to open fences in the farm and open the gates. They all had different closing mechanisms. Dad would just wait while I got it open to make sure that I learned what the score was and that I had to be resourceful. And so it was a great place to grow up and to learn entrepreneurial skills. I did things like I trapped muskrats. I know there's probably people here against fur, but at that time it was okay. And sold them to the fur brokers in New York. I sold magazine subscriptions. I took fruit to the markets in Hagersville and Brantford. I did a lot of other things that were designed to keep me busy and earn a few dollars in my early years. So went to school just up the hill from where I was raised, and then to Waterford High School. I learned to drive at the age of 12, which is the way things were done in the farming community then. I won't tell you all of the mischief that resulted from that. Wouldn't have enough time one night. And then at the age of 17, I announced to my parents at dinner one night that I would like to go to California to study aeronautical engineering, because there's nowhere in Canada that taught aeronautical engineering at the time. And I must say that it surprised them a little bit. That's an understatement. But a couple of weeks later, I was on my way by bus across the continent to Glendale, California to study. And I learned a lot out there too. I learned how to build airplanes. It's very technical stuff, but it was great. It was the first time in my life I got grades higher than C. But it broadened my view. But later on, I looked back and said, I need to, well, I'll come to that later. So then I graduated and came back and got in touch with the deputy minister in Ottawa and asked whether I should join the Air Force or help build airplanes. He said, we have a desperate shortage of engineers. So I got a job at Fleet Aircraft and helped build and redesign the primary trainer for the Royal Canadian Air Force, and there for 3 years, and then they converted to Lancaster Wings, and I said this is the time for me to get out and go in the Air Force, which I did. And so I was just a little too late, really. because when I joined, there were 300 of us in one wing, and only 3 of us were chosen as pilots, which shows you how tough it was at that stage. And I think about 23 as navigators. And everybody got on course except those pilots and navigators who did not need mathematics refresher. If you needed mathematics refresher, you got on course. You went that route. So anyway, I did some what we called useful employment, otherwise known as useless duties at Camp Borden for a number of months. And then when Air Chief Marshal Bomber Harris was caught out for having overestimated his losses, they put 4,500 of us out to pasture, and I was one of them. Came back to Toronto to the exhibition and was demobilized. 9 weeks it took, can you believe? 9 days would have been more than adequate, but 9 weeks. But it was enough to do a couple of things, including meet the girl that I later married. So it was not totally wasted. Went home and had the Christmas dinner with the folks, and then joined the Army. Spent about a year and a half in the Army as a gunner. And then after I was demobilized from the Army, I went to university to get even with Mackenzie King for wasting my time. And so it was really, I wanted to broaden my education at that time to include the liberal arts and to pick up the things that I didn't really have the chance to look at earlier. And of the things that I studied there, economics was my number one thing. I was really taken by it. And it was a difficult time for me because I omitted saying I got married on June 1st, 1945. And when I was demobilized, there was nowhere to live in Toronto. There was, just like today, only worse. There were no lofts, no basement apartments, no attic apartments, nothing. So finally, with a little help from my father, we decided to try to find a store with an apartment over. We looked at a hardware store and other stores, and finally wound up buying a dress store with a nice apartment over. And so we bought it with Dad's help, and it was fine. And so I was doing 4 things at the same time, really. We had a child, and my first job in Toronto after the war was as baritone soloist at Parkdale United Church. And so I wound up studying music, singing professionally, running a store, and then rebuilding it after a fire. I was a member of the original opera chorus, and we were rehearsing one night. The phone rang, and Ginny Lippert answered, and then went up and whispered in Nicky Goldschmidt's ear after we finished the piece, which he remembered 50 years later, would you believe? He said, "That was for you, but you can't take it here, you've got to take it out in the hall." So I went out in the hall and kept getting the busy signal at home. Finally, I phoned my sister-in-law, said, "I got a call, request to call home, but just keep getting the busy signal." She said, "Well, you better get home pretty damn quick, your place is on fire." So it was, every sleeve was burned off, every dress and coat and suit in the whole place. But more important, my wife and baby daughter just got out by the skin of their teeth. It was due to a Jewish cantor who lived next door, and who tried the door, which went up on the outside of the beside this door, and yelled up at my wife, because at first she thought it was just the kids having whatever. And so she put the baby in a little towel and marched down the stairs, and by then the glass risers were cracking with the flames coming through as she got out. So doing all of these things at the same time didn't leave an awful lot of time to study, so that's another story. Anyway, at university,